Good evening, everyone. It's Sam here with another book review video. I don't know if these are properly reviews or just a really quick skim, but nonetheless, um, I think today I'm going to talk about some books on theology that I think pretty well every pagan, or at least every pagan who's doing leadership um, should read. Give you a better understanding of what it is we're doing and why we're doing it beyond the nuts and bolts of ritual performance or mythology. Um, I definitely would encourage you to read as many of the original documents, the original myths, stories, plays, of the pantheon of your choice. Read the Tane, the Mabinogion, Beowulf, the Greek plays, Ovid, Homer. Um, but you need to go and develop a theology beyond these things. And here's a few books that have been very influential to me. Books that whose theology I find fascinating and interesting and very useful. So I'll just start. In Praise of Polytheism by Maurizio Bettini, a short little book, translated from Italian and published in 2014. Originally published in 2014, it was just translated a couple of years ago and published by the University of California Press. Bettini does a wonderful job of talking about the differences between a monotheistic religion, in his case mostly Roman Catholicism, and the polytheistic religions, our approach to deity, our understanding of humankind's relationships with the gods. Um, this whole issue of a jealous God, which is something that's completely foreign to polytheisms, or at least to Roman polytheism. We're much more interested in uh, finding out how other people worship their gods and joining in than in telling them that they can't have any deity. We certainly aren't interested in a rules-based or legalistic approach to dealing with the gods. Major differences between paganism and between polytheistic paganisms and monotheism. He explores them with a lucid, clear, witty prose. It's an excellent translation, and I just very highly recommend it as a work of theology. A Terrible Love of War by James Hillman. James Hillman comes out of the post Jungian um, uh, school of thinking. This was published in 2004 by Penguin Press. There's a paperback version of it available now. Um, and he talks about the gods and goddesses as archetypes to some extent, but also as persons, personalities, and persons, and discusses in particular how we can come to understand theologically things like warfare, like love. Why is it that love is sometimes terrifying and terrible? Why is it that war sometimes elicits feelings of passion and love and beauty? These things seem contradictory inherently, but if we look at the relationship between the goddess of love, Aphrodite, and the god of war, Ares, and see how that works, how they personify the qualities of war, the qualities of love, and how their relationship worked out, that gives us a mythic story to explore these apparent contradictions. It's a brilliant piece of work. Ever since I first read it, I've been very impressed by the depth of his understanding of the loving, kind, beautiful aspects of horrible violence and the terrifying and frightening aspects of love, and how these work together. He also has a beautiful polytheology. He talks about how the gods in a polytheistic framework can't really be understood as individuals, separate from their relationships with the other gods in their pantheon, that a polytheistic framework, all goddesses and gods are part of one great story. And it's that whole story that gives their powers and their actions in the world meaning and nuance. It's a lovely book. Get yourself a copy. The third one, this is also an older book. Let me just take a look here. 1995. It's Richard Grigg, When God Becomes Goddess. It has been republished in a far too expensive edition, but there's still a few of the original edition around. See if you can find one. It's a very good survey of feminist theologies and the some of the underlying commonalities that the feminist theologies have. One commonality that I found particularly useful is that feminist theologies talk about an enacted deity, a deity who is made real through the actions of human beings, not separate from the world, but necessarily part of the world and all of the things that we do in the world together. And how the deity is made real through our actions, through our worship, through our engagement with the world and with each other, and just a very fine piece of theology. I recommend it quite highly. I've been very impressed with it ever since I first read it, which was, I guess, shortly after it was published. Now, on to some other stuff. Oh, here's another prominent feminist theologian. This is an advanced proof copy of Carol Christ's She Who Changes, Reimagining the Divine in the World. Carol Christ is a process theologian. That means she emphasizes very strongly deity as part of the process of the universe, deity that unfolds as the universe, proceeds along doing its universing thing. She sees the divine process at the foundation of the universe as being more like female than like male. She calls it goddess and she, and talks a lot in here about errors of traditional theology, the problems of things like an omniscient, never-changing, loving deity. There's many contradictions in there. God being absolutely perfect and unchangeable. God being completely unsympathetically good. And she very nicely cuts apart these errors in traditional monotheism and starts talking about what a theology would be like if everything had a certain amount of consciousness and free will, and how if deity was not able to predict everything that would happen because everything has free will, you and I can make choices that are not predetermined. And we are part of the universe as a whole unfolding. It's an exceptionally good work of theology, a little thick and chewy for if you don't have a theological background, but it's very worth a read if you want to deepen your theological understanding. This is an absolutely magnificent book. It really is. Goddess and God in the World, Conversations in Embodied Theology by Carol Christ and Judith Plaskow. Way back when, in the mid-1970s, when these two women were students at, I think it was Yale, they were earning their PhDs in Yale way back in the late 70s. They met and they started the first feminist theology conferences, started writing feminist theology, encouraged others to do so, and they've been actively engaged as feminist theologians ever since that point, up until Carol Christ's death a couple of years ago. This is a book of them in conversation about what they agree on and disagree on. Carol Christ went from various sorts of liberal Christianity to becoming a strong goddess movement feminist theologian. And her friend Judith went and became an observant Jew, and dealing with problematic images of God inside that tradition, but nonetheless committed to it. And the conversation that they have about their differences and their similarities is absolutely fascinating. Two really exceptional minds dealing with compassion and care with these complex issues, giving what amounts to a joint theological autobiography, a joint theological biography. The way it's set up is that they each will talk about an issue in separate chapters, and then they will critique each other's work in a third summary chapter, and then move on to the next issue. So it's intellectual engagement of the first water, compassionate and kind, and just a joy to read. One of the most amazing books in my collection. I highly recommend reading it. And now on to some other stuff. I think I will dig into some more academic stuff for a minute. This one, excuse me, Goddesses in Myth and Cultural Memory by Emilie Kutash, published by Bloomberg in 2021. It's now out in paperback, but I got this as a review copy in hardback. This is a very interesting history of images of goddesses in antiquity. How it was that a lot of the ideas that we now see in feminist theologies about goddesses, the triple goddess, the idea of the goddesses as fundamentally philosophical concepts, all that sort of stuff, the redemption of demon Lilith and the goddess Hecate emerging as the Magna Mater. A lot of the developments of the Neoplatonists, which are still prominent in contemporary goddess theologies, emerged later Roman Empire, first few centuries CE, and she talks she goes from a very, very well argued, well grounded understanding of the Neoplatonists to a somewhat less well grounded development of goddess imagery through to the present in several different epochs in Western Europe. She has a bit of an agenda. She ultimately does not like the way that the feminist theological movement is dealing with goddesses, critiques them as being fundamentally essentialist, anti-male, and not all that scholarly. but her scholarship around the earlier period in particular is exceptional, and I will recommend strongly giving it a read. If you are working with goddess images, particularly from the Greco-Roman period, this is a very, very helpful book. And now, a contemporary book, just in part because this is such a beautiful piece of writing. American Druidry, Crafting the Wild Soul by Kimberley Kirner. Kimberley Kirner is an acquaintance of mine, and when I heard about this book, I had to read it. She's a Druid. She's also a university professor in California. This is published by Bloomsbury this year, 2024. And this is a beautifully written, exceptionally thoughtful, very well grounded in the literature, but also in her own personal experience. It's an autoethnography of her experience as a Druid around various issues. Sacred place, time and body, relational spirituality, and how to live as a Druid, living as a Druid. There's personal insight and some personal anecdotes, a good deal of reading through the literature, a very fine scholarship, and just a compassionate and thoughtful and highly intelligent person reflecting on their spiritual path. What a treat! Just a treat from beginning to end. I'm not a Druid, but I find after reading this there are some very thoughtful and insightful theological notions that she explores that I'm going to have to dig into a little more deeply myself, because simply because she explained it so well. Okay, another personal perspective. I'm starting to get up my pile here too. This one, The Woman Magician, Revisioning Western Metaphysics from a Woman's Perspective and Experience, Brandy Williams. First printing 2011, it's by Llewellyn Press. Just a very, very good and thoughtful exploration of the various ways to approach spirituality, various lenses through which you can view spirituality, and particularly recenter it from her perspective, a woman's perspective. She wants to talk about new ways of thinking about spirituality that are specifically based in what she understands as the female gender approach. And she's had a lot of experience in various types of spiritual traditions, Golden Dawn, Thelema, witchcraft, and she engages with each of these traditions with an eye to what's good for women and what's bad for women in these traditions. Through tradition, through history, through philosophy, through science, through culture and theology, and finally through magic. And she finds good things and unfortunate and negative things through each of these lenses in these traditions. And it's quite an interesting, thoughtful work. At the end of it all, she talks about the Order of the Sisters of Seshat, a spiritual order which she and some friends founded to include and address the issues that she's found in other occult orders, and gives a number of rituals and details of temple furnishings and all that kind of stuff. It's a very interesting and thoughtful thoughtful book, and what I thought was particularly interesting about it was the emphasis on practical theology, saying, okay, here's stuff that we've had handed down to us that works or that doesn't work. Let's take the stuff that works and let's make something for ourselves that works even better. It's a practical approach that I thoroughly approve of. Okay, and two more that I will just quickly mention. These are books that should be read by anybody who's planning to lead a group. Bringing Race to the Table. Exploring Racism in the Pagan Community by Crystal Blanton, Taylor Ellwood, and Brandy Williams, published by Emilie Press. We have, 2015. This is an anthology edited by these people with an examination of unexplored overt or covert racism, assumptions that people make, privilege, cultural appropriation, a number of issues that are important to consider if we are to be inclusive, if we are to be a spirituality that connects people to the world and draws people together, then we really should be examining our dark side. And this is a very good book for that. Another book, which I also will highly recommend again to leaders, Pagan Consent Culture, Building Communities of Empathy and Autonomy, edited by Kristen Hoff Kraemer and Yvonne Aburrow, and published by Asphodel Press in 2015. Again, dealing with some of the unfortunate dark side of some pagan practices, some issues that have come up, particularly around, not exclusively, around sexual consent, but also around any issues of power and control. It's a very useful list of issues to be concerned with, and of personal accounts and experiences of times when it worked and went well and went wrong, and how we can address these issues clearly and in a caring way. Okay, that's quite a lot of books in this pile. I'm going to stop now and wish you all well. Take care now.